What's up, everybody? Chris here from Chris Gates Fitness. I'm back with another episode. Thank you for joining me. I'm excited to dive into this one today. Our topic on the podcast today is, do you have to work out every day to lose weight? And this stems from a frequently asked question and honestly a frequently traveled road by a lot of people when they're trying to do some type of body recomposition or weight loss journey. Body transformation is, how much do you have to work out to make that happen? I think a lot of the time people assume that you need to do a lot more than you actually do. And that's what we're going to outline in today's episode. So we'll talk a lot about just specifically what some of the priorities are that you should have if you're trying to lose weight in terms of what your exercise program should look like. And then, as always, we'll outline coaching cues. I'll give you some coaching cues if I were your coach, what I would recommend you do, how we would maybe structure a program for you, or, at the very least, structure the starting point to that weight loss journey. So lots of good stuff on the way. Real quick, before we dive in, I mentioned if I was your coach, I can be your coach. If that's something you're interested in, I'm an online personal trainer. What I do is I work with people across the globe, all over the world, to do the things that they've always wanted to do with fitness and nutrition. And that's oftentimes building muscle, burning fat, and getting the type of physique and overall health that you've always wanted, dreamed of, tried to get, but maybe failed in the past. And that's what I help people to do. So if you're at all interested, I'd really recommend going to my website, chrisgatesfitness.com. Hit the coaching page, read about what coaching is about, check out some of the client testimonials I have on my website from people that I have worked with in the past, and even some current clients that are doing amazing things with their fitness and nutrition. And if you're interested, fill out a coaching application form. We can start talking about what a program might look like for you. So with that said, I want to start off with the thought of the day. And this is going to really meld well with what we're talking about on this episode of the podcast. But doing 4 specific things to help you see progress with trying to lose weight. And we'll go into more details about these as we dive deeper and deeper into this podcast. But let's make it very simple. 4 things that you can do to see progress with fitness and nutrition and losing weight. Number 1, strength train somewhere between 2 to 5 days a week and focus on compound exercises, right? Focus on the exercises that you're going to get the most bang for your buck, the most return on investment with, and progress with those, okay? Number 2, do low intensity cardio a few times a week. Low intensity cardio is a good way to conceptualize it, is something that you could hold a conversation while you're doing it. So going for a walk or a light jog, maybe going for a bike ride, anything that doesn't get your heart rate up so high and you working so hard that it's hard to breathe and it's just super intense. We don't want to go there. Do low intensity cardio a few times a week. Number 3, get yourself into a calorie deficit and stay there. Okay. If you've listened to any of these episodes of the podcast before, you know the one thing you need to lose body fat is to be in a calorie deficit. And number 4, give yourself time. There's no bigger factor than time with this stuff. Often people underestimate the amount of time it actually takes to lose body fat sustainably and keep it off. It takes a lot of time. People aren't often happy to hear that. You may not be happy to hear that, but I'm telling you, it's the truth. This stuff takes time. It's never going to be as quick as you want it to, but you can 100% achieve what you're trying to achieve. You just need to understand that you shouldn't put a time limit on it. You shouldn't put a time frame on it. You shouldn't put an end date. I want to lose this amount of weight by this date. I would not recommend that. Give yourself time, do it in the most sustainable way possible, and keep moving forward. All right, with that said, let's dive into the topic of the day, which, as I said at the start, is, do you have to work out every day to lose weight? So I know that setting up the right workout schedule can often be difficult because there's just so many factors at play. And as a coach, I've heard time and time again from my clients that one of the biggest benefits they get of working together is just having the guesswork taken out of things. So not having to wonder, okay, well, if this is my goal, what are the specific things I need to do to work in that direction? That's daunting. It's intimidating. It's challenging. And so a big benefit my clients get is just like, okay, I know what your goal is. I know how to get us there. I'm going to tell you the specific things that you should do. And all you have to worry about is doing those things, right? That's really helpful. Because some of the things you have to consider if you're trying to put together your own plan. Okay, what's your primary goal? Obviously, that's the biggest thing. Number one, what is your goal? Then you have to think about, okay, what's optimal for achieving that goal? Do you need to lift weights? If you do, what exercises are going to be best while you're lifting weights? And should you do cardio? If you have to do cardio, what type of cardio is best? How much time do you have to work out? How much time do you have to spend in the gym? Also, how much time do you have available to dedicate to the gym? How much is going to be too much from an exercise standpoint? And at the same time, how little is too little? If you're not doing enough to create adaptations, well, that's a problem. So those are some big key points that I would focus on to help you build out a program, and something you would have to think about on your own if trying to build out a program for yourself. And that list goes on and on. But you're in luck because in this podcast, I'm going to walk you through the answers to a lot of those questions. So where I think is a smart place to start is with the topic of exercise frequency, and then we can dive into some more specifics on how to put together a program for yourself and figuring out how much you have to actually work out to lose weight. So let's talk about exercise frequency, and that term can be defined pretty simply. What it means is the amount that you train each week. And we can look at that in a few different lenses, right? So we could talk about overall frequency, which would be how many times you work out across the week each week. You could also look at it more specifically to, okay, types of training or body parts that you're training. So for an example would be, how many times are you training a certain muscle group each week? How many times are you training chest each week? And does that support the goal that you have? Then whether you train a lot or a little, whether you should train a lot or should train a little, somewhere in between, any of those. For weight loss specifically, it differs from a lot of other goals that involve training, that involve working out, okay? So if you're running a marathon, you're probably going to want to have a pretty high exercise frequency, because if you think about, I don't know if you're familiar with training programs for running marathons, and if you're not, a big key point for running a marathon and training for one is to build up your endurance and build up your mileage over time leading up to that race. So if you're going to run a race that's 26 miles long, throughout the week, you're going to want your weekly mileage to build and build and build so that by the time you get to that race, you'll have a certain level of endurance built up that running the race shouldn't be an issue. Building muscle is kind of similar. We know that each muscle group requires a certain amount of volume to optimally grow. You need to challenge it, and you need to give it a certain amount of training volume, challenging it throughout to encourage those muscles and encourage your body to build more tissue, to build more muscle. There are also some forms of strength training that don't require that. So strength training specifically. So if your goal is not to build muscle, but you want to build strength, you want to squat as much weight as you possibly can. That actually may, depending on the person, require less training frequency, exercise frequency, because the recovery of squatting heavy loads is so high that there's quite honestly only so much you can do and have your body be able to recover from it. So there's a lot of variability, but with weight loss, the good news is it's a much simpler process. So let's talk about, do you have to work out every day to lose weight? And how does that frequency come into the equation? So I'm going to start off with a really vague answer. And you should work out as much or as little as you can be consistent with. And I know that doesn't give you an exact number, like 5 days, 6 days a week. But that's because there is no exact number for anybody. You can't just say it would be optimal for you to train 6 days a week. Everybody that's trying to lose weight should train 6 days a week. That's not how it works. And honestly, a big reason why a lot of people yo-yo diet or yo-yo with their exercise plans, where they try to lose weight and then they fall off and then they try again and they quit, back and forth, is because oftentimes people start from a place that is so unbelievably unsustainable that it's the reason they quit, right? And that could be because you do so much, you work out every day for 2 weeks and then you're so damn tired and sore that you have to stop and you never get back on track. Or you reduce your calories so damn much that you eat like 1,200 calories for 2 weeks and then you're so burnt out, you're so hungry that you binge and you never rebound, and it was unsustainable from the start. So when it comes to weight loss, the 100% absolute best program that you can use is the one you can be consistent with. So to figure out how many days a week you should work out to lose weight, you first should examine what your daily lifestyle looks like and determine what's feasible. So let's you and I right now walk through some of those things that we need to consider when looking at your daily lifestyle and see how that would apply to how much you should work out. So for starters, what are your daily and weekly demands and obligations looking like right now? If you work, how many days a week do you work? What are your hours? How many hours within each day do you work? And when is your free time outside of work? Are you in school? If you are, what's your class schedule like? Where are your windows of free time? Do you have a family? This is a big one. And if you do have a family, what's required of you each week with your husband, your wife, your kids, everything that is involved with having a family? And it's a lot. What other hobbies or events do you like to prioritize each week? This is another one where it's like, okay, this isn't an obligation. This isn't something that is set in stone, but these are things you like to do. And when we talk about a program that's going to be sustainable for you, you should not be on a program that says like, well, you know what, you like to go watch football on Saturday nights with your buddies and have a couple beers. But like, okay, well, you're trying to lose weight right now, so you're not allowed to do any of that. That doesn't make any sense to me. If there are things that you enjoy, hobbies or events, things you like to do that you like to do each week, those should probably be part of the equation still, because that's going to continue to make life enjoyable, hopefully make the process enjoyable, and keep you on track. Everybody's busy. You're busy. So it's important to outline these things that occupy large portions of your time each week. And once you do that, I want you to actually write these things down. Put it on paper or type it out in a Word doc. Do something where you can view it all in front of you. And then ask yourself the following question. What can you realistically see yourself doing and accomplishing each week? It's a hard question, right? I mean, that's as straightforward as it gets. And what I would say is, as you go about answering that question for yourself, what can you realistically see yourself doing and accomplishing each week? Start small, okay? If you look at everything and say like, all right, I could probably work out 4 to 5 days a week. I could probably commit to that consistently. Then I would say start with 4. Don't start with 5. Start on the lower end and then build over time as you start to incorporate these new habits, this new routine into your lifestyle. Okay, so if you start with 4, then you're giving yourself the awesome opportunity to potentially add a 5th day down the road. But if you start with 5 and you find out the 5's too much, then you're in this tough struggle of figuring out, okay, well, I packed all this stuff into 5 days. So if I reduce to 4, does that mean I have to take stuff from day 5 and slam it into some of these other days? And how does that all come together? And am I going to be overtraining myself? And my time demand's going to work? Like, there's so many things you have to kind of backtrack on if you start with too much. And that's why I say start on the lower end. Start more conservatively, because you can always add. You can always add. Subtracting is a lot more difficult. So if you can only work out once a week, let's talk about like lowest case scenario, 1 day a week. Then plan on 1 day a week. and make sure you get the most out of that day, and don't skip it, and be consistent with it, because I guarantee if you commit to that one day and you're consistent with it, you'll see progress. It may take a little bit longer than somebody else, but you can see progress with one day a week. Because here's the thing. The real true key to weight loss is nutrition. I know this episode is about how often do you have to work out to lose weight? Do you have to work out every day to lose weight? You don't have to work out at all. Now, would I recommend that? No, I would not recommend that, because there are so many unbelievable health benefits to exercising regularly, both strength training and cardio, that you should exercise regularly. But you can lose weight without working weight. It's been done. People do it successfully all the time, and do it without ever doing a planned workout. Because to lose weight, no matter how much or little you work out, you simply need to be in a calorie deficit. Now, if you are exercising, your calorie deficit will probably be higher than if you're not exercising, because the more you're exercising, the more calories you're burning, and that allows you to eat a little bit more food, right? Because a calorie deficit means you need to be eating fewer calories than your body burns each day. That is the laws of thermodynamics. It's energy in versus energy out, and it's how we burn body fat. It's very simple. Now, like I said, I don't recommend you go the route of not working out at all. But this gives you that understanding and flexibility to say, well, I'm going to start on the lower end. I'm going to start with less, because I could work out I could lose weight with no exercise, and then slowly build over time. Regularly exercising will make the process of weight loss easier. Like I said, it burns calories. I don't want you to take that to the place and the mindset of, okay, well, exercising burns calories, so I just need to exercise as much as possible, burn as many calories as I can, and then I could eat whatever and I'll lose weight. Because that's wrong on so many levels. Number one, it turns your relationship with fitness and food into something that's totally screwed up, because you're going to start thinking about exercise as only calories burned, and you're going to never address the real issue, which is your nutrition. But more importantly, if you're doing a combination of strength training and cardio along with being in a calorie deficit, you're actually going to improve your overall body composition. You're going to love the way you look at the end of the process, because you can prioritize the amount of body weight you lose from body fat. If you're strength training, you're going to build muscle. At the very least, you're going to hold on to the muscle that you've already built, because you're challenging your muscles. Your body's saying, okay, well, we're continuing to do these difficult exercises that challenge these different muscle groups. Body says, I need to hold on to muscle, so I'm going to burn energy from body fat, because I don't really have a need for all of this excess body fat. That's a very simplified breakdown of how it happens, and your body can't speak, but if it could speak, that's what it would say. And the more muscle you build over time, the more calories you'll naturally burn. You'll raise your metabolism. So there are so many good reasons to work out while you are trying to lose weight. But I go through all that to paint the picture of what really is important in terms of losing weight, losing body fat, and it is fixing your nutrition. So let's dive into the coaching cues from this episode. If I was your coach, here are 3 things I'd have you do. Number 1, first, go through some of that self-evaluation that I mentioned earlier in the article. Give your lifestyle a hard look. Like I said, write it down, put it on paper, and determine what is actually going to be feasible for you. From an exercise standpoint, number 2, evaluate some of the things that you like and you dislike. Because having a list of what you enjoy and also a list of maybe what you hate with exercise, that can start providing a clear picture on what's going to be sustainable for you. And as I mentioned earlier, sustainability is key. If you don't enjoy it, you're not going to stick to it. And if you're not going to stick to it, you're not going to see progress. So we need something that you can do consistently. If you like it, there's a good chance you're going to stick to it for the long haul. And if you give yourself time, you're going to have a better chance of seeing progress. And number 3, start on the lower end of what you think is feasible and slowly and incrementally add to that over time. I went into that quite a bit earlier about starting conservatively and adding is better than starting too aggressively and trying to subtract. A couple things, that we can dive a little deeper into in terms of what specific exercises to do. The physical activity guidelines for Americans, by the way, this is put out like every 10 years, I think. If you just Google that, you'll find it's a PDF of like, I don't know, 50 or 100. It's crazy long. But if you ever want to read it, there's some interesting stuff in there. It's not like the gospel for exercise, but it certainly has some good information. Some of it, I think we maybe shouldn't lean on, but some of it I think we should. And one of which is just like exercise frequency and exercise duration. I think there's some good stuff in there. And those guidelines suggest that adults do 2 or more days of strength training a week. And I think that's a great place to start. So if you're not doing any strength training, start with 2 days. Try to do 2 days a week and see how it feels. And you could break those into an upper body day and a lower body day. And there you go. You're hitting the entire, all the muscle groups throughout your body, and you're getting in some good work. Focus on compound exercises, the major motor patterns like pressing, rowing, squatting, pulling, stuff like that. It can be very, very basic. And then from those same guidelines, I'd recommend picking another 2 days and doing some low intensity cardiovascular training. So this could be walking, jogging, going for bike rides, some of that stuff we mentioned earlier. Gets you up and moving. It's something you can do sustainably. These aren't things that are going to make you so tired or sore that you can't continue with them. So that's why they're so great, because you can walk every day. Walking is probably the best exercise known to man because you could do it every day. It's not going to break you down. It's going to build you up. These are the types of things we're trying to do here. The goal is not to maximally overload yourself every day and every week. Instead, try to overload yourself slowly over time by incrementally adding more to your routine. And unfortunately, the way people tend to do this weight loss thing is they do the exact opposite of what I just said. You want to lose weight, you want to do it right now, so we're going to do as much as possible every day of the week. And that hardly ever works out. And if it does work out and somebody can lose 30 or 40 pounds on it, unfortunately, the data shows that 3 to 5 years down the road, that same person has put most of that weight back on, and that's because they did not do it sustainably. And that's why I want to coach people and why I do coach people, because I hate to see people do that. I hate to see people put all that effort in, but do it unsustainably, and then, they're back to the drawing board several years later. So let's do things sustainably, okay? And with that, we can just dive into some final do's and don'ts. Going to rehash a lot of what we said here, but 5 things: do this, not that. Number 1, do this. Focus on sustainability. Do not do as much as is humanly possible right from the start. Number 2, do this. Prioritize your nutrition. Do not focus on calories burned instead of calories consumed, because as we talked about earlier, that's going to lead you down a road that just ends with a very poor relationship between fitness and food, and nobody wants that. Number 3, do this. Strength train 2 to 5 days a week. Just went over that, right? Do not focus solely on cardio and burning as many calories as possible. It's kind of tied into the one we just talked about, but you need a good combination of both, especially if you want to like the way you look at the end of the process. Number 4, do this. Cardio 2 to 5 days a week. Do not do high intensity interval training every day of the week because you heard it's like optimal for fat loss or some bullshit like that. That's not true. And number 5, do this. Slowly and incrementally add exercise to your routine over time. Do not try to do as much as humanly possible in every training session. Come full circle there, right? I hope you found this episode helpful. I enjoyed putting it together. I also have an article on my website with the same title, Do You Have to Work Out Every Day to Lose Weight? So if you want to read more about this, head over to chrisgatesfitness.com, click on articles, and you'll see that on the articles page. And like I mentioned at the beginning, I'm a coach. I would love to work with you or at least talk to you about what your goals are. And you can find more information on my website. If you're interested in talking about your goals, hit the coaching application form and fill that out. Takes like 2 minutes, and then we can talk more about what you want to do and maybe how we could work together. So thank you so much for listening. I appreciate it, and I will talk to you soon. See ya.